John McDonnell, Shadow Chancellor, is with me. The truth of the matter is you don't want an election now because you think you'd lose it.
No. I want an election. I want it as soon as we possibly can. But sometimes you do have to put the country before party. And the key thing for me now, and I think it isn't just me, it's across the opposition parties and within the Conservative Party itself, is we've got to prevent Boris Johnson forcing through a no deal because of the damage it could do for our country.
So let's be very explicit. You think that despite the Act of Parliament will come into force next week, Boris Johnson would simply run the clock out and leave without a deal while pretending that it was all about an election? Potentially,
and it looks like, from what Amber Rudd has just said, the lack of preparation for a deal and the concentration on a no deal looks as though that's his strategy. I think we're in an extremely serious constitutional position, and now's the time to put party advantage to one side and concentrate on the seriousness of the situation we're in. I think that we've got a Prime Minister now who's saying he won't even abide by the law. What we've got to do now is use every mechanism we possibly can to rule out a no deal, right. And that's what we're trying to legislate on as best we can. But also, once we've got to that situation, we can then, I think, that's the time we can have a general election.
Well, so your strategy depends entirely on the EU granting this extension. Can I ask if the EU has given you any kind of indications that they would do so?
All the indications we've had in the past is about the ability to have an extension based upon a significant move in this country. I think the significance of the legislation we're putting through at the moment, the Ben bill, would enable that to happen.
So you don't have guarantees right now. Let me come on to your policy. Yeah. Is it still your policy to negotiate a so-called jobs first or a pro-Labour Brexit deal?
I think we've got to get to the situation now where we accept what the offer is from the European Union.
So you would negotiate a deal yourself?
I think it's a matter of just confirming what the offer would be. And then we've said then it has to go back to the people again.
So by the offer, you mean Theresa May's deal, presumably?
Well, there was issues. Remember,
There's no other offer.
No, well, I was in negotiations for 6 weeks with the Conservatives, and there were a whole range of issues there that were addressed, which, from the indications that we were getting from the European Union, they might be able to have some shift on. So you can see an offer consolidating that would then go back to the people. We believe the people should have the final decision.
Something looking a bit like May's deal is negotiated by the Labour Party. You then come back, you put it to the people. In that referendum, how do you vote?
I would campaign for Remain.
So
but we've got
this deal or Remain?
You will know that to get anything through at the moment in terms of popular support within the country, they would have to present an offer that is actually acceptable across all parties, not just one individual party. And that's the situation we're in.
So this proposed Labour referendum after the next election completely cuts out the views of all of those people who want to leave without a deal. Or, as it were, the hard Brexiteers get no chance at all. There's nothing on the ballot paper for them. They're pushed to one side.
We have to be honest with people. I can't support a no deal, and I think it would be so damaging for the country. I don't believe it's a realistic offer.
So let's talk about the Labour Party's official policy, because I've had lots of Labour figures sitting in that chair saying that they are in favour of Remain. In the end, they think remaining in the EU is the best deal available to Britain. And yet, time and time again, when it comes to the manifesto, the Labour Party manifesto is, as it were, a pro-Brexit manifesto. I've got a graphic here of the last two manifestos. 2017, we will seek to unite the country around the Brexit deal. And 2019 European elections, we believe such a deal, a Brexit deal, could bring our country back together. In other words, when it comes to the actual motion of the party at high levels to work out what's in the manifesto, you stick with a Brexit deal.
Well, also in that manifesto, we said very, very clearly we would not support a no-deal Brexit. And that's what we've done. So our position, let me just go through it because this is quite important so people understand. All our efforts at the moment is to prevent a no-deal Brexit because it would be so damaging to the living standards of our people, their jobs and the economy overall. That's our focus at the moment.
If tomorrow the government proposed a referendum, would you vote for it?
Yes, I most probably would. I would like a general election first. I've always said that.
But not yet, not yet.
Well, I don't see, not yet. Until we've ruled a no deal off the agenda, I can't risk, with Boris Johnson being in power, that he wouldn't somehow impose that on the country.
Thinking of the options ahead of him, another option is to say, you are insisting that I go and take this surrender document to Brussels. I absolutely refuse to do it. I can't break the law, and therefore I resign as Prime Minister. in those circumstances, the Queen has an obligation to go for the next person who might be able to form a majority. But the Parliament isn't sitting at this point, so we can't actually test parliamentary opinion. But Jeremy Corbyn has some kind of right to expect to be called by the Queen. The problem with that, we both know, is that Joe Swinson and others said they would not serve in a government of national unity under Jeremy Corbyn. You've been talking to the SNP. Have you offered the SNP formally what you said at the Edinburgh Festival, that the Labour Party would not stand in the way of another Scottish...
No,
well, you said it at the Edinburgh Festival.
I know there's no deals, but that was my view as I expressed. There's no deals at all whatsoever.
Let's look at some domestic policies. It's been reported that you want to identify everybody in the country earning over £150,000. Is that true? And if so, why do you want to identify them?
A report came to us about corporate governance, and that was one of the proposals. It's not one that I favour, but what we did say, if you remember, that for those people earning over those people earning over £1 million, we'd expect their income tax returns to be public, just like mine are.
Over £1 million?
Yeah.
You've also said that I think 2.5 million people who, instead of putting money into pensions, have invested in a property, BuytoLet.
Yeah.
And those properties, under a Labour government, would be sold to the tenants. And the question is, at what price?
Right. We're exploring the idea of a right to buy for private tenants, which is there available to council tenants and others. And then the discussion would be about what would be a fair price. And if you remember, in the past, there's been fair rent assessments in this country. So some people have put forward the idea you could have a fair price assessment, but that's part of the consultations that we'll be having.
So the question is, would it be the price that the person had originally bought the property at?
So, I wouldn't expect anyone to lose out, of course.
So they wouldn't lose out?
No, I think people would
be a fair market price?
Of course it would. People would be protected, of course. You wouldn't want to... if people have invested in that way, you'd want them protected. But this is giving people who have rented over a period of years the opportunity to purchase if they could, because it gives their family stability.
That makes it very clear. John McDonnell, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.